Welcome to From the Left. My name is Stephen Leon, and I am now running in Maryland's 8th district in the Democrat Party. Thank you to the GCD Network for hosting this show. So, Democrats, we lost pretty bad in this election. That's what tonight's show is going to be about, the election overview. So, as I mentioned, I'm running in Maryland's 8th district now. The incumbent, if he were to choose to run, would be Jamie Raskin. If you're familiar with who that is, he's one of the faces from the J6 committee, and he's been kind of skating on that momentum. Clearly, hasn't really helped anything. There are some crimes for Trump to answer, and those are going to be postponed post-presidency. Very well may get pardoned by Vance, assuming that he would have the presidential role. That's more getting into the details. So, and I'll probably pepper on that with what I'm going to talk about. So, why this is from my own cognition. I'm very media literate. I try to find the best ideas and then go with them. And then sometimes there aren't any ideas to address things, and I just get innovative and then try to solve it that way. So, just from my own words, why do I think Harris lost? And if you look at the two different campaigns and how they just went at each other, one of the big things is price gouge consumer spending. So just with a capitalist society and a free market competition, a price gouge, there's no evidence to say that price gouge consumer spending would have been the outcome if Trump had won in 2020. So the cost of things, right? Unfortunately, just the way that the corporations run and the CEO salaries and things like that, we could have had those prices down at 30%, but you don't see that in the Trump brand. It's just blame. And then the other thing is with the border. There was a Venezuelan embargo where he went extreme with it. You have to be very careful with that stuff. Look what happened to Germany after World War One. The powers that be, we were one of them, even Japan. And we kind of pushed them away from the table, and they grew a resentment. And then the thing with China, that's something else. But we created the sanctions that we created onto Germany after World War One were so extreme. What did Hitler do? He did the same kind of thing. He subjugated an entire group of people, not just the Jews, and he blamed them. It's their fault. And he manufactured his war machine underground. Of course, we didn't have satellites and things like that. So that's what happened. You squeeze them so tight into desperation that they have no choice but to that. I'm not saying that's the solution, just blame and seed resentment. And then, of course, ideologues that just aren't scientific. If you look at eugenics and what that is, in fact, that was a thing that even the United States did back in the 20s. If you had a mental illness in America, there were lots of cases where women were castrated for that. But again, you can't blame the entire institution in the United States. This is a country founded where we even had slavery, but even then, that doesn't mean that everyone agreed with it. And we're able to filter that out. That's what being a more perfect union is about. So, and how that relates to the border, well, in that Venezuelan embargo, Trump's White House staff warned that that would create a flux in migration. And you see where Trump is campaigning in 2016, the numbers of migrants were pretty low. This is a decades-long problem, right, that we've been having. And they were the lowest with Barack Obama. Barack Obama totally used ICE, but he did it methodically, humanely. So COVID happened. So here in one hand, you have Trump campaigning that we need to build a wall when the numbers are really low, actually. He's just feeding fire. He's taking certain ideas, exaggerating them, and then making you believe it, right? And then what's up happening, COVID happens, and then there's an influx of migration, and that was causing a lot of problems. It's illegal. We don't want to do that. And the Biden administration sort of played the game that could actually help the economy in time if they were even aware of it, but they didn't sell us that. So that's a fault on the left to do that. So here you have Trump blaming, that all this stuff with illegal immigration causes crime, where then everybody knows, anyone who's media literate knows that most people in this country that commit crimes are not illegal immigrants. He's just, again, taking that fear. If you've ever seen Through the Wormhole with Morgan Freeman, really cool thing, what possesses somebody to vote Republican and what possesses someone to vote Democrat, whether that's genetics, environment, choice. And it depends on the risk factor and fear and variables, okay? And when we're looking at the map here with this election, a lot of people decided to vote for Trump, not really thinking long-term and knowing, if you look at the tax policies in particular, the long-term, equal right, both of those tax policies would put us in a deficit. So no matter which way, policy, whether Trump succeeds or not in whatever, it's not a reason to be relevant enough in that to not do anything and think ahead, whether again, whether he fails or succeeds. Because if you see where Trump has succeeded in anything in his previous term, was that the wealthy benefits. And if you think that that helps the lower, it's not. He's just blaming. There's plenty of data to support that. So the country clearly spoke and they want to give him a nice shot. So going on more, why I think Harris lost and why Trump won is the exaggerated accomplishments from the left. Here I am running for the Democrat Party now. I've always voted for the Democrat Party 98% of the time, except for this previous election where I voted for Dr. Vell, Forward Party. I spoke with him at one of the events that's around here. And I remember seeing him at this Civic Federation. It wasn't really a debate. It was more of like a discussion, really. He had a panel and he would ask questions, but they didn't challenge each other why this would work and why wouldn't it. Here and there a little bit, especially not with the House. It just wasn't there. So that's pretty much the only event for the House that we have here. That's the, and if you look at that, the live attendance was 30 people from the stream, but if you were actually there, there's probably another 30 people. And then again, there's like people have tracker blockers and things like that, so that number might be higher. And whatever gets pushed through the grapevine and all that stuff. So the so yeah, and then of course I wrote myself in, and I had some circumstances. The ballot restrictions here are pretty tough. 1,000 signatures, and 1,200 of those I submitted 3/5 qualified. 340 recorded as blank. It's bullshit. So I communicated with my state delegate through X, and I can send her an email, whatever I see around. You know what I mean? But like, why did these have to be so tight? We're in Tennessee. You just heard Tennessee elect before. I remember talking to them. 25 is the signature requirement and no registration fee. And then in Maryland, no signatures, $100 registration fee. You just have to move there by election. So, and I know a lot of people up there not going to feel alone. I actually live in Columbia, Maryland, between the ages of 3 and 8. So it's always been a second home to me. So this should be pretty interesting. And I'm coming up in here. I'm still going to be true to the Democrat Party there, but there are some. This is Reformation. I'm going to get to that. So the exaggerated compliments on the left, where it's the Inflation Reduction Act. Okay, it didn't do that, and it was a lot of corporate welfare. You know what I mean? Even in Biden's own words, that the Inflation Reduction Act had to do with other things. It's plutocracy. You know what I mean? Just look at all the lobbyist profiles and everything like that. We want to get rid of that. So that's at least one thing. Now Trump's talking about rolling back to pay for his tax policies, a lot of the infrastructure that has been invested by public funding. So even if it's just a fraction, even then, we are still the world's largest oil producer. And I'm not trying to ban anything like that. You can recycle oil, you can still drill, but you don't have to burn it in the atmosphere. In order to do that, we're going to have to change our tech. That's all my platform. Right? This is reformation for the Democrat Party. That's what it's about. So now the right's exaggerations, again, name calling, things like that with the comrade Kamala, like the definition of communism, essentially how the people own everything and there's not much progress. Russia went through that. You know what I mean? USSR went through that and all that. So they would have to own your property. I saw a socially engineered, you can see these Facebook profiles and the memes that they put up there, and you can tell right away that's all just social engineering where someone is saying that they don't want to pay property taxes because it's un-American. They can take care of their property themselves. Well, your property taxes goes to police, fire, and other things, and it's not that much. And even then, in some states, past you have breaks over the age of 65. You know what I mean? It's like, so I responded to that. Like, so you're actually saying you want to defund the police. That's what you're saying. And and again, which way, whatever it is that Trump succeeds or not, I guarantee, I don't want to guarantee you, but I'm just so much aware that whatever he doesn't succeed with, he's just going to blame the left. That is unprofessional. Let's see what he does. And again, no matter which way he goes, you know what I mean? I don't feel like a loser right now. The fact that I lost the write-in thing here, I don't feel like a loser at all. You know what I mean? I'm just untapped. Thank God I have the show and I'm able to push this through. So to call Kamala, Comrade Harris, and all these things, and people just weren't thinking long term. I think collectively, if you look at the country as just a giant brain, they just believe that they would get more money with Trump, and there's no experts that have been really saying that. With the tariffs and of course the costs, the environment, even then our prices are already affected by climate change, and Trump, he's waffled. It's very easy to see him say climate change is a hoax and then him change his tone to it. Even when it came to COVID, remember when he debated Biden, he's holding his mask, and it's just so surly the way that he does it. And when as soon as he's saying that it's a hoax and then, no, I wear my mask, it's pretty surly. But again, collectively, people are saying that that's what they're thinking. They're thinking that Trump's going to get you more money. Let's see. And if he does, it's going to be at the expense of the environment. And he's probably just going to blame, probably. So I have to speak scientifically about that. You know what I mean? I want to guarantee you a piece of shit if I'm wrong later, with whatever it is. That's a Tommy Boy reference, right? So again, this really comes down to the plutocracy. It's really what it comes down to on both sides. We can't call out, we can't get rid of corruption unless we know what it is. It's not our federal institutions that hold us accountable. It's just how corporations buy out our elect, and they're benefiting and we're not. Corporations and politicians. So that's really what it is. And to mitigate that, it's with the American Anti-Corruption Act. I've been saying that for a full-on year now. So check that on my website, leonforcongress.us, and you can see that American Anti-Corruption Act. It's even peppered up with celebrities and things like that they were able to do that freely. You can tell they're not bought out by that, and why would they? Just look at the principles of it. And the other thing about the Trump brand, and this has been going on since Reagan, pretty much that deregulatory ideologue. Regulation is a part of life. It exists in the universe, in inanimate objects, in our own bodies, sport, and especially with industry. Otherwise, nothing would exist. If atoms wouldn't stick together if they weren't regulated by, you want to say, God or something out there, right? And we can manipulate that with, again, physics, solid, liquid, gases, plasma. You can mold steel, metal, and if you take a bunch of rocks and get out the dirt, and there's your metal, and you can malleate. It's malleable, and there's things that you can do with it. You can do that with medicine. You can do that. You take coffee beans. A coffee bean doesn't just grow by itself. You know how coffee beans like in a big plant. You know what I mean? A tree. You know what I mean? That's essentially all we do is we find natural resources and then we use it for our advantage, right? And then some of these all resources are finite. So again, with that deregulatory attitude, nothing's going to exist if you keep going down that way. If you don't trust industry experts and just try to, what they're doing, it's just their own form of plutocracy, and it's not going to work long term. It's not. That is facts. It's just, you can't keep burning CO2 in the atmosphere. The oceans can only absorb so much. It will become cataclysmic if we continue down that path. And this is about finding the proper regulatory balances. And that is basically what Harris was trying to do. But she didn't mention much about, climate change and anything new there. And she was just defending Biden still. I give her a break, and like that VP role, there's really not much power that you have. And Trump wanted to go after her saying, why are things still this way? Why are things that way? And she didn't really do a good job being like, hey, look, that VP role, even since John Adams, I can't quite remember the quote. There's no more contrived role that my people have developed than the VP role. But in the same hand, I think there's another quote. In this VP role, of course, John Adams was the first vice president and the second president. So there's no in this rights. I am nothing, but I might be everything. So I definitely went after Trump, and it was just, or Vance would point his finger at Kamala, like, well, maybe you're just or Trump, either one of them. You're just pissed off that Pence didn't kiss your ass on January 6th, right? So anyhow, solutions. I really want to focus on solutions. That's what my thing's all about. And there's sure, I have personality, I have bias to the left, always have. And then there's just, it's important that we look at the principles of thing. When I put out a press release when Biden and Trump debated that one time, that Biden had won that debate, but just, he's old, and that's really what it came down to. It's unfortunate that people don't look at it that way. There's 2 points to anything. I mentioned that Venezuelan embargo. You know what I mean? I knew that Trump just had this like blame kind of thing, and that was a credible source. I think it was Politico, where his White House staff had warned against that. And then I keep a ledger and everything like that. If you go to my Facebook, you'll see there's just, it's hard. It's even in there. It's like I start posting other stuff, and I get to this place. I'm like, this is perfect. These 5 posts right here, because a lot of people just scroll through that real quick, that would say it all. And then something new develops in the world, and then I have to post that. You might miss these lists of things, these dings that people have, on there. And I still have this political virginity because I haven't been elected. I haven't fucked anything up. So um that's good. All of a sudden people assume that I would, and there's some psychology there. And well, again, as with there always is. So we just can't go with that deregulatory attitude. You know what I mean? There's certain balances that we have to have, but we can't take it too far. Look what happened in California with Newsom had signed that law that the fast food workers would make $20 an hour, and Chipotle is sidestepping that with robots, and so they've already reduced 20% of the workforce because of it in that one state, and that's something that's working through a left policy. If you take it too far, and that's a state minimum wage, not a federal. So we need to look at those balances. We need to talk to the experts, and they can confirm it. People that went to college, people that have studied. This is very important to me. When I work in the patent world, and those examiners are skilled in the art. They don't just pick anybody up off the street just to, who imagines that they know something. You know what I mean? So. And that's what I find the most pure thing about. There's this cool thing about in the newsroom. It's one of my favorite HBO shows, and how the opening scene talks about like America's not the greatest country in the world, and he goes off on this big spiel of all the reasons why, all those numbers, and again that show's like 10 years old. So how many of those numbers are still? They're probably still the same, right? And at the end of that, if I were to post that, just to be like, look, I can relate to you if you like, if you get this. But I have to put it in the patent office. It's our pioneering. It's really what it is. When it comes down to anything, all the things that we've invented, the airplane behind me, or computers, the internet, atomic energy. I like to use atomic energy where it can be used very useful, but just not for weapons. You know what I mean? I've been talking a lot to the Green Party to try to get them reformed into more of a technological based party where there's a lot of social parallels to the Democrat Party. But since it kind of got in the game for climate change, and it might just think stereotypically that it's just solar panels or whatever it is, look into advanced nuclear. Look into it. Some of these fourth generation reactors would totally be defined as renewable. The more I talk to people about it, the more that just kind of that information gets them. By definition, something like a TerraPower reactor is totally renewable because we're reusing spent fuel. There's 300 or 400 years of depleted uranium in Kentucky. You know what I mean? Just because Bill Gates has initially advocated for this and he's funded in TerraPower, you think you want to believe whatever social engineering that's out there because Elon Musk is better. Oh, what was it? There's something that recently he reposted something about COVID, and again, it's that deregulatory attitude. Like if I actually talked to the independent elect group about this, and they enlightened me on something where there should be more accountability. Like if you don't want to take the shot, you get fired or whatever. But what kind of accountability if you get sick from the COVID shot? What kind of help would the private sector be responsible for? You'd have to look into that. A lot of that stuff was given to us for free. Sure, there's lots of government funding involved with that or whatever deals. You have to look deep into that. But there should be some accountability with anything, any kind of medicine. And anybody want I can look at it both ways. It's like definitely like tobacco. You know what I mean? The cost of that's gone up. But do you sue do you sue alcoholic beverage companies if you're an alcoholic? Do you really? It says it's got a warning label on it. It doesn't go in depth and all that stuff. So it's really about finding the deregulatory ideologue balances when it comes to policy that does not benefit the corporations. And eventually they will, but you don't have to, a politician doesn't need to be bought out by them. That's the difference between me. Like if you have a good idea, then let's talk about it. Like I don't need, give me a few key points and then what are the principles here? And then I'll write the bill on it. And then there's interns and all kinds of stuff, plenty of templates. I have 2 patents myself. I wrote that ICAS patent. And I remember just talking to the agents, like, what'd you think? And they're like, oh, well, it's not what it's the thing about the patent office. It's just like anything else. They're accustomed to certain key terms and Word document formats and all that stuff. That's just what it is. It's the bureaucracy. Life is a bureaucracy. So yeah, people weren't thinking long term. Again, there's this. We'll see how it plays out. You know what I mean? So a lot of people are going to be looking to the midterms for this. I know that I am. and there's already found some of the dirt on Jamie. You want to see him and think of him and see his personality, and he's really far left. And we don't need that. We don't need that right now. And it's not a lot of, there's definitely no Don Bar. Don Bar is dirty. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to AI. I don't like that. So, and it's not really about just finding the dirt. It's like, just explain that. And then what are the solutions to it? And why would I be a better candidate? Right. So, and then where are the facts to back that up? And unfortunately, as with this election shows, that people didn't really look at that. They just looked at it just wasn't sold to that. Here, I voted for JD Spain for county board, and there's a few check boxes down there asking if we should contract debts for this or that. And I don't know how they're going to be repaid. And I still voted for JD. And, it's like millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars for this and for that. And it's like, how are these things going to get repaid? Because when I was out there getting signatures, there were a lot of people were saying that the developers are buying out Arlington. Those are going to raise taxes. And here in Arlington, it's gone up close to 2%, where only half the people can afford to live here. You know what I mean? And some people may see that as a prestige, whether they're from here or not, and they move into any one of the high-rise kind of communities that are near a metro station, and they deal with it for a couple years, and wherever they move after that, and they just would vote a particular way, and then they're out, right? And yeah, that's something to look at. And I would hear the objections to all this, and I think JD was talking about like a tax credit for renters, and how far is that going to be able to go, and what does that look like? And really, if you go to anything that most people would ever really know about a candidate, is what they're seeing on social media or their website, and it's just a lot of photos of JD just being kind of a cliche, hanging out with everybody and not really explaining. Like, I don't remember seeing him talk about the details of how we're going to repay some of that debt. So I didn't check the boxes, yes or no. Like, I didn't say yes or no, I don't know. And what I did check yes on was for, should military spouses benefit if they were to lose their spouse in the military? Yes, right. And then the other one was water. Yes. The other 3 or 4, it's like, I don't know. Like how's it going to be repaid? So yeah, you have to really look at these things, and I call them out as best I can. It's like, how really is that true? Are the developers buying out Arlington? Are we turning into a micro New York City in a way, where you see someone like AOC would thrive, where suddenly all the plutocracy and everything is buying out everything, that your only solution is to call yourself a democratic socialist? We are a hybrid society. There's definitely a lot of socialist programs that we have that are beneficial, that work, but taking them to an excess is just not going to work. So things like public education, Medicare, Medicaid, and the military, it's all funded by taxpayer dollars. And that seems to be working, but we more things like, geez, man, again, the exaggerations on left. It's one of the reasons probably why we lost. When you look at it, it's when gun violence, a socioeconomic challenge, and even people on the right know that. But when you're out there creating more government programs, like, was it the gun violence task force or something like that, part of the White House thing, we're going to save gun crime, and it didn't work. Crime has gone down after COVID because people have jobs. That proves my point right there. You have a job to go to, you're not going to be, whether if it's out for sport or desperation, out there committing crimes, right? So that's an idea of the balance that I'm talking about. This is time for any would-be Democrat that's watching this show. It's time for a reformation. I've been way ahead of this game. I changed all my branding. I'm not done yet. You know what I mean? It's really about we need new ideas to reform. We need to listen to the right. I've been saying it for the past year, past 2 years, 3 years, and this is a perfect opportunity. You hear the right saying we need unity. Okay, well, we want regulatory balances with all the things. Okay, and if that's going to make you less money, tough. All right, and then they'll show your true colors. You can spin it any way you want. Okay, it's not going to work, because I'm totally advocating. This is something in my spiritual program: principles over personalities. Okay, and when you don't get that, there's going to be ego deflation involved. So it's based on being constitutionally honest with yourself. I go to church meetings a couple times a year. Of course, I'm impartial with my religious background and all stuff, like kind of like Kennedy was. Kennedy was the first Catholic president, and they were worried that the whole country was worried that he was going to impose his religious beliefs. And Kennedy was more of a liberal Democrat too, and lots of people on the right liked him. And was it just the way that he spoke? Was it the fact that he advocated for nuclear energy? That he took us to the moon? You know what I mean? And it's important to look at those principles. Even then, he had to wake up to some of the social programs, everything that was going on with Martin Luther King at the time and all this stuff. And Martin Luther King was all about healthcare. If you've been here to DC, you see that Barack Obama had dedicated the memorial to Martin Luther King when he was president. So yeah, Martin Luther King was advocating for, like, that's like the worst form of tyranny is healthcare. So these things are nothing new in any democratic society. For even goes back to Rome, you know what I mean? There's a lot of similarities. We're not Rome, you know, it's completely different. There's this plutocracy. That is the most fair. You want to hear, especially Jamie Raskin, you hear him say accuracy this, accuracy that, accuracy that. To make it the most fair, we have certain antitrust laws, so a lot of things, but fundamentally, it's the plutocracy. The definition of that is government ran by the wealthy. And then there's little lobbyist structures and things like that. And that's why I really like the American Anti-Corruption Act, the fact that it was developed by a former FEC chairman, and that, of course, the constitutional scholars profess by it. And then it's also got celebrity endorsement too. And it's been around for 12 years. You know what I mean? And it's fine by me that it's not. You seem like Ro Khanna. Let me say that. Like, we don't have any credibility as Democrats, or I'm not. I like the Democrat Party. It doesn't own me. Okay, it doesn't own me at all. It's just a vehicle. It's a infrastructure to get things done. You know, I'm very cognizant of that. I don't need to kiss anybody's ass, and I don't need anybody to kiss my ass to get ideas done. Right. So really that's what to call out Ro Khanna, we have to call out our own side. Ro Khanna has no, if we don't have any credibility to call whoever it is, left or right, that would be an example to really show. I have no problems calling it Ro Khanna, Nancy Pelosi, Don Beyer. And out of those numbers right there, Jamie's got some. His wife did a revolving door thing where they cashed out on $1 million, and just because they knew certain things that were going on behind the scenes, and they didn't report it on time. They were having some personal issues, and also just his PAC money. It's like American University and some other things. It's like, why are you elected? Just so everyone can see you, that you went to college and that you're, again, that your scholarly thing, it hadn't changed anything. So it's time for new blood. And so yeah, we have to be able, as Democrats, those that would vote Democrat, even if you're on the right, to call out our side of the street, and then we would have some credibility. Ro Khanna has no credibility to call it, and he tries. He has a 5-point plan to mitigate corruption. It's exactly like the American Anti-Corruption Act that's been around 12 years. And look at Ro Khanna's stock trades. That's what you need to look for. Stock trades, PAC money, GovTrack, where go to the media literacy section on my website, and you can see that. You can cut through the disillusionment. And Nancy Pelosi, of course, NVIDIA. So yeah, that's basically pretty much what I've had to say tonight. Next week's show is going to be really cool. I've got somebody from the Pause AI group. Now, I'm way ahead of this game, which is cool. If we want to reform, whether or not, even if you're on the right, whatever it is, and we need something new. And this isn't just for the sake of something new, is that AI can be very dangerous. Go to Pause AI, I think it's .com. Just Google Pause AI, go to the video section and learn. It does a really good job explaining. If you've heard some of the key terms around, and just anything above GPT-4 is scary of what it can do. And if this gets a hold, it's like a man-made virus. Really look at this guy. Sean is going to come on next week. Super smart guy, and he's actually been. I'll say that he's politically savvy. He's advocated for some individuals on the right, but now he's impartial, and so am I with Pause AI. Not really seeking any kind of endorsement or anything like that. I'm gonna help them pass out flyers next Saturday, and just gonna get involved. Have them. I want to be able to protect jobs from artificial intelligence. I also want to be able to make sure that it's safe, and do it from a way that is not provided by lobbyists, things like that. So that's going to be, he's really smart. So you're going to see his presentation. Hopefully my screen share is going to be okay. But if not, like, I'll send a link in the YouTube video, and you'll see, just let him talk, listen to what he's saying when it comes to this stuff, and the expertise that he brings to the table on AI. It's nothing to play with. And if you've got a deregulatory attitude like Trump, that's just going to want to deregulate. This is what I'm talking about. You really have to think about this stuff. Please be objective, just like I am on my side of the street. And that would be unity as far as anything goes with that. So I'm running out of time. I'm out of time. And I will see you next week with Pause AI, and have a good night.